Welcome to the Catholic Midlife podcast, where we address the challenges and the opportunities of midlife from a uniquely Catholic perspective. This is the time, my friends, for a deeper renewal of your Christian vocation. Come and enter into the freedom of Christ that allows you to be the person you were created to be, because there's an amazing, awesome, exciting next season of life waiting for you. Hello, and welcome to the Catholic Midlife podcast. You're here with Karen and Curtis Herbert, and this is our Thought Trap season of the podcast. So we've spent some time talking about, just the various distorted ways of thinking that become patterns in our brain. We've talked about especially the thought trap of the shoulds, the musts, the have-tos. And we've talked about rumination, and today we have yet another thought trap coming to you.
We do, and a listener on our Thought Trap season commented, social psychology studies demonstrate that people tend to make negative attributions, and once made, people are reluctant to change them.
Oh no, it's the first impression thought trap. So easy to fall into.
It's so easy to fall into, and today, the thought trap we're going to talk about is taking things personally.
Ouch.
Taking things personally. And the context is when we're taking it personally and we're giving away our power. And by power, I simply mean it's up to us to bring our attitude, to control it, to manage it. But when we start to take things personally, all of a sudden, we're putting that in somebody else's hands. We're leaving it to them to reflect to us, well, who I am and how I should think and what I should be reacting. And the problem with that is that's a power that, they can't handle. It doesn't belong there. They can't use it because really it's our power to bring our energy and to bring our values, to bring our virtues, to bring all those great things that we have with us in potential.
Right.
Bring them into reality. Because, we have agency in the world. There's things we're called to do, things only we accomplish.
So it's almost like when we take things personally, we're letting somebody else or something else dictate who we are and who we should be in the world and what we're supposed to be doing.
And it matters.
It matters.
Because we need to be who God intended us to be, because we have a contribution to make. And we receive grace. This is primary in our lives. And if we want to receive grace, we have to be receptive and on the alert. And when we take things personally in the sense that we're going to discuss, we're making it a lot harder to do that. So we don't want to do that.
Curtis, I'm kind of curious, like this phrase, taking it personally, it's a little vague. I mean, what's the it really in taking it personally?
Yeah, the it's. Well, let's start with this story.
All right.
Okay. So I'm a mother-in-law.
Oh, good to know.
In this story.
I know.
So here I am. And my daughter-in-law, she's coming over to help with the holiday dinner at my house. No pressure. She's making the mashed pumpkin potatoes. The sweet potatoes with the
marshmallows on top. Yummy.
And so she's asked me 2 or 3 times, where's the knife? Where's the mixer? What is this, the mixer? Where's the spatula? And it's kind of this agitated tone of voice. So I'm the mother-in-law, we've got a little bit of history. And I'm just like, what is with the tone of voice? Like, she's here. She doesn't approve of my kitchen. She doesn't like my mixer appliances. She doesn't think it's organized. She doesn't think it's clean. She doesn't approve of me. It's pretty clear, just listening to her and watching her, she thinks I'm a loser that can't put a kitchen together.
Oh, she's judging you and your house and your motherhood. And
it's so obvious.
Aha.
I mean, am I going to put up with that?
This wouldn't be a story that you're making up by any chance, would it?
Yeah, it's a story. And what I'm thinking, though, is I'm in the story and I'm thinking, well, she's not happy to be here. She's not happy with me. She's judging me. And you know what? She's the daughter-in-law. She could show me a little respect. She could show that she values this relationship, and she could reel in her tone.
So it's almost like you're making up the story and then you're responding to the story.
Actually, I'm kind of getting into this story. So
I'm sorry, you want to keep going?
I'm moving. I was just getting rolling.
I'm sorry.
Going from annoyance to anger.
Ooh.
And as you pointed out, though, it is a story. So we would call that an interpretation. We interpret things so quickly. And I just want to talk about why we do that, because I think it's helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we interpret things quickly, just like first impressions. I mean, it's kind of a survival thing. You need to pretty quickly size up the stranger that you meet on the edge of the clearing. Is this friend or foe? And we have a reflex. Our awesome brains, they're trying to figure out quickly what's going on. And we make a story about what's happening around us. And there's kind of two levels. One level is really at just a very primitive physiological level. You have to appreciate that we're beings. We move through time and we have memories, and we are putting all that together in a narrative. What happened to me before? Who am I? Who are these people around me? How are they going to respond? And it is a way of being in this complex world. And you really start to appreciate how all that operates at the primitive level when you encounter people that they're starting to lose their memory, perhaps. And all of a sudden, they're being unmoored and disconnected, and their personalities starting to alter simply because they can't create the narrative. They can't create the story that they need simply to operate in the world. So that's one sense in which we're story making people. Are you with me so far?
I'm with you. Okay. I'm into it. Keep going.
Okay. So the other piece of this is, and I alluded to this, is that it's the survival instinct. It's the stranger in the clearing. And this is, it's not me showing up at the party and wondering if I'm going to get the topping on the ice cream that I want.
Yeah.
This is operating at a really primal level. It's more like, do I get to eat today? I have to size up this situation. And that's why we have an instinct to take things personally. Whatever's happening, it's about me. It's about me being in the group. Am I going to continue to be in the tribe? Are they going to kick me out, which is life or death? Am I going to move up in the tribe? Am I going to be marginalized at the bottom? All these things are part of how we're constructed to survive and live in the world. So we take things personally. Of course we do.
That makes a lot of sense, because it's like you have to have the kind of interpretation of events around you and what it means for you so that you can respond appropriately. And it makes total sense to me that you would have to be doing this at some subconscious level extremely quickly, because response can be needed extremely quickly. And you have to be able to filter out all the other information that doesn't pertain to you personally.
Yeah, indeed. And perhaps a vigorous response is called for. And that's something anger is good for, is all of a sudden, whatever we're going to do, it's justified.
Yeah.
When we act out in anger. And so back in this story, as the mother-in-law, my daughter-in-law thinks, well, I'm this loser. And boy, the anger is getting there.
So I get that this would be kind of natural for us to take things personally, But I'm intuiting here that there could be a downside to having that as a pattern. I mean, what's the downside?
Well, absolutely. So as the mother-in-law, maybe I immediately got the correct answer that my position is somehow threatened and I'm being mistreated and I have to respond in a certain way that's very vigorous. But the downside is that my story probably has nothing to do with what's really going on. And so I'm going to act in a way that doesn't help the relationship. It doesn't help me be the generous and kind person and wise person that I hope to be. I'm just responding out of this story that I whipped up together. So most of us, I think, appreciate that once we catch ourselves creating these stories, that it's time to put a break on it, to step back, to find some space to reflect. I mean, I can walk out of the room, count to 10, do my breath. And what I want to do is maybe diffuse this anger at its source, right? I want to get at this story and think about, okay, well, what else might be happening? What else is a possibility? Because I've got my story, but maybe something else is going on.
Sure. Like maybe she's running behind and she couldn't get everything together and she's feeling kind of stressed about getting it ready for dinner time. Or maybe the kids are misbehaving over there and she's scattered and it's hard for her to locate what she needs.
Oh, right.
Definitely. Or maybe she's feeling a little pressured to make the perfect sweet potato marshmallow casserole for the holiday.
She's got casserole anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. Or she may not realize what her tone of voice sounds like and what she's communicating in the moment.
Yeah, sure. Or maybe in her family, the chef in the kitchen is the one who's like the surgeon that barks at everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spatula, suction, get the right suture.
That's what she's used to.
That's what everybody does. Who knows?
I think there's this principle and it's worth reflecting on. Curtis, we sort of hear it a lot in the coaching space, and it is very true. And it can help to create some distance and some kind of boundaries around our stories. And that's what people do and what people say. Really, it's about them and it's not about me. How I interpret their actions, the story that I tell myself, well, really, that's about me and my own history and my own lens of meaning that I've created over many years.
So in this example, as the mother-in-law, I've got a little bit of history with this daughter-in-law, and that's fine. And maybe I've got my own sort of insecurities around my kitchen or the relationship or whatever. And so that's driving my interpretations of her actions.
Right. But the interpretation really, it tells me a lot more about me than it does about the other person.
And one of the things that helped you get past the story to suggest alternatives is this idea that the daughter-in-law, she's pretty much doing her best considering all the circumstances. And this is another principle, is to think that people are doing the best they can considering all the circumstances.
I think that is really, really true. And when we really accept that, it could change our perspective and it can change our decisions. People are doing the very best they can at every moment, considering who they are and what they're dealing with and what their circumstances are.
And this is challenging, but it's very powerful and it's very useful for us to bear in mind as we show up with our great values and principles and aspirations in dealing with other people. So I have another story for you.
Okay.
And this is about this idea that people are doing the best they can, considering all the circumstances. This is a story from Stacy, who was a trainer of ours, coach trainer. When she was getting her training, she had some kind of association with I guess it was a youth detention center. And she got a call that one of her youths, was in a straitjacket in a holding cell. They were like,
wow.
Yeah, hey, do you want to come down before we ship this guy off to be with the adults, because he was old enough? And she said, yeah, you guys wait, I'll come in. She showed up, and he's in this holding cell, and she said, okay, you guys, told the guards, leave us alone, I'm going to talk to this guy. And they're like, are you sure? She said, I'm sure. And you can think about why he was there. He had been misbehaving at the facility and then got into it with the guards. And then they put him in a straitjacket to restrain him. And I'm sure that, without knowing anything, I'm still sure that he probably made a lot of decisions in his life to get to that place. And she could have reasoned with him, could have lectured him. Hey, this isn't reasonable. What did you think was going to happen? What were you thinking? Haven't you learned by now? She didn't do any of that. She's thought, he's doing the best he can considering all the circumstances. So she thought about it, and she started to ask him, well, what is it you really want here? And of course, he said, well, I just want to get out of this holding cell. But she kept probing to get to something deeper, and asked him, what's more important? I mean, if you really got out of here, what is it that you want? And eventually he said, I want a day to go see my mother. I want a day out of here to go see her. And
wow.
Yeah, I don't know if she was sick or if he missed her or what the deal was, but that is really what he wanted. So Stacy, it was a huge ask considering everything that had happened, but eventually they worked it out so that with certain behaviors and whatever conditions, he was able to get his wish. And so Stacy, the thing was, she understood that her role wasn't to make the stories or just dive into this narrative of here's this kid that's done all these things. She wasn't making stories about his past or his future or his thoughts or whatever. And all of a sudden that created some space, some opportunity to, just try a different approach.
Well, one thing that's striking me, Curtis, from the story is she recognized he's doing the best he can under these circumstances. And then it wasn't like, so it doesn't matter. It was, so how can I support him to make the circumstances that he wants a reality? How can I help him to get what he really wants and create the shift so that he really could grow and change and feel like he can work towards what he wants?
Karen, now let's jump back to this principle. What people say and do is about them. How we interpret their actions is about us. So in the example, the daughter-in-law's actions were being interpreted by me, and what I chose to say and do, that was the issue. But really it cuts both ways, doesn't it? It's when people are saying and doing things to me or with me, that's mostly about them. And my interpretation of their actions, that's mostly about me.
Okay, so in a sense, you're saying what people say about you, really, that's about them and about their own interior story and narrative and interpretative process. And really, they're mostly thinking about themselves and not so much about you.
Yeah, and then the way I interpret whatever it is they're saying and doing, that's mostly about me. That's about my past life, my narrative, my everything that's going on with me.
Sure. The whole story that you've created to make meaning out of your own life. So can we turn around the other statement as well, that people are doing the best they can considering all the circumstances? And really that means I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can considering all the circumstances.
Yeah, you're doing the best you can considering all the circumstances now and last year and 10 years ago.
I think this is actually very hard to believe about ourselves. We might say, I'm doing the best I can, but internally we're saying, guess what? I should be doing better.
Right. You should be doing better.
Yeah.
I've really learned that people, they simply refuse to believe this principle until they've really worked off a lot of, stuff, and they've overcome their intellectual objections. They're ready to think the best of others, but somehow when it comes to themselves, they think, well, I know how I could have tried harder, so I'm not going to show myself some compassion by giving myself the benefit of this charitable thought that I willingly extend to other people.
I'm totally on board with the self-compassion, Curtis. I think self-compassion will help you with any of these thought traps that we've gone through this entire season. It's a skill that really gets them at the root and shifts what you're telling yourself about yourself.
We're near the end. Let me take a little perspective, Karen. We're so ready to create these stories, and that's understandable, but often they're just not connected to reality. And so we need to have a way of, getting perspective on the stories.
Yeah. So give us those principles that you mentioned this episode so we can have them in our mind as we end here.
Absolutely. So the first thing is just remember what people say and do, it's about them. How we interpret their actions is about us. And secondly, people are doing the best they can considering all the circumstances.
Thanks for being with us, everyone. We'd love to have you come on over to Facebook and join our Facebook group. Just search the Catholic Midlife podcast and join our discussion there about the season. And we'd love to see you there.
Thanks for being here with us. The Catholic Midlife podcast is for anyone that wants to receive the abundance of life that God has for each one of us. Take a moment right now to tell a friend about us.